Hey, dear members of the Soul Stories family. Today we will bring you a romantic love story, so let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any meaningful stories. Harper Lane stepped into the conference room, her high heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. The chandelier's glimmering light shone down, highlighting her navy business dress that hugged her tall, slender, yet commanding figure. Her brown hair was neatly pinned up, revealing sharp eyes that scanned the crowded room. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a battlefield, and Harper had never lost on her battlefield. She offered a slight smile to a few familiar partners, adjusting the thick stack of documents bearing the Novatech logo, the tech startup she'd built from nothing. Today's project, a contract worth hundreds of millions with the investment giant Global Nexus, was Novatech's chance to go global. Harper had prepared everything: data, strategies, and razor-sharp answers for any tough questions. She knew she'd win, until the opposite door opened and he walked in. Ethan Cole. Harper's heart skipped a beat, but she quickly tightened her grip on the documents to hide her reaction. 7 years had passed since they'd last stood in the same room. 7 years since he'd left her with a broken heart and unfinished dreams. Now there he was, tall and composed, in a perfectly tailored black suit. His dark hair was slightly tousled, his deep blue eyes scanning the crowd, until they landed on her. No smile, no hint of surprise, just a cold nod, as if they'd never been anything more than rivals in the business world. Harper took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. She was no longer the 23-year-old who'd cried over him. She was the CEO of Novatech, and today, she'd make Ethan Cole realize that leaving her was the biggest mistake of his life. Harper Lane, Novatech, she introduced herself as she approached the meeting table, her voice clear and confident. She extended her hand, her gaze locked on him. Ethan Cole, Titan Dynamics, he replied, his voice low and calm. His hand clasped hers, lingering slightly longer than a typical handshake. Still playing big, aren't you, Ms. Lane? Harper's lips curved slightly, pulling her hand back as if his touch might burn her. Only when I know I'll win, Mr. Cole. She turned away, but not before catching the spark in his eyes. A mix of challenge and something she didn't want to name. The conference room gradually filled with investors, partners, and reporters. Harper sat in her assigned seat, 3 places away from Ethan. Close enough to avoid hearing his breathing, but not far enough to escape the chill of his presence, like a cold breeze slipping under her collar. She flipped through her documents, trying to focus on the numbers, but memories crept into her mind. They'd been the perfect couple in college. Harper, the brilliant girl with wild ideas about technology. Ethan, the ambitious guy who could turn ideas into reality. Together, they dreamed of a startup that would change the world, writing their first lines of code in a cramped dorm room. But then he vanished, choosing a job overseas without a word of explanation. Harper called dozens of times, sent countless messages, all met with silence. She swore she'd never forgive him. And now here he was, CEO of Titan Dynamics, the leading tech conglomerate Novatech had to surpass to secure this contract. Shall we begin? The voice of Richard Hayes, chairman of Global Nexus, cut through Harper's thoughts. He stood smiling at the room. Today we'll hear pitches from 2 outstanding companies, Novatech and Titan Dynamics, a 3-year contract, a singular opportunity. Who will lead? Harper felt Ethan's gaze from across the table. Without looking back, she smiled at Hayes. Novatech is ready, sir. So is Titan Dynamics, Ethan said, his voice steady but carrying a weight that silenced the room for a moment. The presentations began with brief introductions from both sides. Harper stood first, her eyes sweeping the room like a general before battle. She spoke of Novatech's vision. Technology wasn't just a product, it was a way to connect people. She outlined a groundbreaking marketing strategy, emphasizing penetration into new markets with optimized costs. Her slides were vibrant, her data woven into a compelling story, and she knew she was in the lead. As she sat down, several investors nodded, and a reporter scribbled furiously. But then Ethan stood, and Harper felt the room's atmosphere shift. He didn't use flashy slides or flowery words, just him, a whiteboard, and a marker. Ethan quickly sketched a chart explaining how Titan Dynamics had developed new AI that cut data processing time by 30% compared to industry standards. He spoke slowly, but every word was precise, like a blade slicing through doubt. When he finished, the room erupted in applause. Harper's hands clenched under the table. She hadn't expected him to be this strong. The meeting concluded with an announcement that both companies would have another presentation at a resort this weekend. A final chance to sway the judges. Harper gathered her documents, trying not to glance at Ethan, but he approached, stopping right in front of her table. "You did well, Harper," he said, his voice soft but carrying something elusive. "But this time I'm not stepping aside." She looked up, her eyes meeting his without flinching. "You think I need you to step aside? The last time we met, Ethan, you lost, and you will again." He smiled, not the cold smile of a rival, but the smile of someone who knew her better than anyone in the room. "Have you forgotten? I've never lost to you, Harper, and I'll prove it." He turned and walked away, leaving Harper standing there, her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. She told herself it was just the adrenaline of the fight, but deep down she knew. This battle wasn't just about the contract. It was about two people who'd once loved each other fiercely and now stood on opposite sides of the line. Harper Lane sat in Novatech's gleaming glass office, her eyes glued to the computer screen. The stock chart on Bloomberg was soaring, a vibrant green curve signaling victory. Her new ad campaign, with the slogan, "Connect today, lead tomorrow," had swept social media like a storm. The commercial, filmed with drones showcasing futuristic cities aglow with lights, had been shared millions of times. Analysts called it Novatech's Big Bang. The company's stock surged 12% in just 48 hours. Harper sipped her coffee, a faint smile curling her lips. She pictured Ethan Cole's face reading the morning news. "Let's see what Titan Dynamics can do now," she muttered, allowing herself a rare moment of triumph. But the joy didn't last. Her phone buzzed with a TechCrunch alert. "Titan Dynamics unveils new AI demo, revolutionizing data processing." Harper frowned, opening the article. The attached video showed Ethan on stage, his steady voice introducing an AI technology called Neuralink, promising to boost processing speeds by 40% over industry standards. The crowd clapped wildly, the camera panning to Ethan's face, calm, confident, and maddeningly charismatic. The article ended with, "Ethan Cole just redefined the game." Harper gripped her phone, feeling like she'd been doused with ice water. "Redefine the game," she muttered. "He's just good at polishing his brand." But she knew that wasn't true. Ethan wasn't just talented. He had a predator's instinct, always knowing when and where to strike. And now he was aiming for the contract they both coveted. The Future Summit Tech Conference took place 2 days later at San Francisco's Convention Center, another arena for Harper and Ethan. The vast room buzzed under LED lights, alive with investors, engineers, and reporters chasing scoops. Harper entered, her cherry red dress standing out against a sea of gray suits. She nodded to a few partners, but her mind was elsewhere, specifically on Ethan Cole, whom she knew would show up. She'd barely settled into a front row seat when a tall figure paused beside her. The familiar scent of sandalwood cologne made her tense before she even looked up. Ethan, in a white shirt with one button undone, sat right next to her. The space between them suddenly felt too tight. "This seat doesn't have your name on it, Cole," Harper said, her voice icy but betraying a slight quiver. Ethan tilted his head, a half smile revealing the dimple she'd once adored. "Then why'd you leave it open, Lane?" Harper glared, about to retort, when the stage lights flared, signaling the keynote start. She forced herself to focus on the speaker, but Ethan's presence was like an electric current down her spine. She noticed his every small movement, the way he tapped his finger lightly on the armrest, the way he leaned closer when clapping. She told herself it was just irritation, nothing more. During the panel discussion, a reporter asked about AI trends. Harper raised her hand, standing before Ethan could react. "Novatech believes AI isn't just about speed," she said, her voice ringing clear through the mic. "It has to be accessible, user-friendly. Technology that doesn't connect people will soon be obsolete." She shot Ethan a glance, adding a jab. "Like some things launched this week, for instance." The room chuckled. Ethan didn't flinch. He stood taking the mic with the ease of a man strolling through a park. "Ms. Lane's right about connection," he said, his deep voice captivating. "But if the foundation isn't strong, every connection collapses. Titan Dynamics Neuralink isn't just fast, it's sustainable. And if Ms. Lane thinks it's obsolete," he turned to her, eyes glinting with challenge, "then why's she been watching me all day?" Harper felt heat rush to her face. She opened her mouth to fire back, but the audience's applause drowned out everything. Ethan sat down, his victorious smile making her want to punch him, or worse, pull him closer. The conference ended, but their battle was just beginning. On the cab ride back to her hotel, Harper checked emails, her mind still reeling from the summit moment. Ethan always knew how to unsettle her, and she hated it. A new notification popped up, no sender name. Subject, "Watch out for Titan." She frowned, opening it. The message was brief. Titan Dynamics is quietly buying Global Nexus shares. They want to control the contract. Check recent transactions. No signature, no clues. Harper tightened her grip on the phone, her eyes flashing. Global Nexus was the conglomerate behind this contract. If Ethan was manipulating them, he wasn't just playing dirty. He was targeting Novatech's future. She thought of his smile today, the way he'd called her Lane, as if 7 years hadn't passed. Was this his plan all along? Distract her, then deliver the knockout blow? She texted her assistant, "Check Global Nexus transactions now. I need every detail by morning." Then she stared out the window, rain speckling the glass. Ethan Cole might think he was ahead, but Harper Lane was never one to go down easily. If he wanted to play this game, she'd hit back, harder, smarter. And this time she wouldn't let her heart get in the way. Harper sat in a small downtown cafe, the soft golden light casting a glow on her face, but failing to dispel the pensive look in her eyes. Across from her was Mia, her best friend from college, the only one who'd seen Harper shatter after Ethan Cole. The cappuccino in front of Harper had gone cold, yet she still stirred it lightly, as if trying to dissolve her memories. "You really saw him again?" Mia asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and concern. "After 7 years? And now you have to compete against him for this century-defining contract?" Harper nodded, taking a sip of bitter coffee. "I don't have a choice, Mia. Ethan's now the CEO of Titan Dynamics. If I lose, Novatech loses everything." She paused, her gaze drifting into the distance. "But seeing him, it's like it was yesterday." Mia leaned forward, placing a hand on Harper's. "Are you okay? I mean, after what he did?" Harper gave a faint smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine. It's just, I didn't expect to see him. I thought I'd forgotten." Her voice lowered, as if afraid the memories might come alive. 7 years ago, Harper and Ethan were inseparable. They dreamed of a tech startup together, spending countless nights in a dorm room, sketching diagrams and writing code. Harper had conceived the idea for a global data connecting platform. Ethan made it reality. They'd promised to change the world together. But then, in the summer of their final college year, Ethan vanished. He accepted an internship offer in London, a golden career opportunity, and left without a word. Harper called, texted, even emailed, but all her efforts sank into silence. She waited at the airport on the day he'd promised to return, only to realize he wasn't coming. Her heart broke, and their startup dream dissolved. She told herself he'd chosen ambition over love, vowing never to let anyone hurt her again. Mia sighed, shaking her head. "He was a jerk, but you moved on, Harper. You built Novatech from nothing. He's not worth revisiting." Harper nodded, but deep down she knew it wasn't that simple. Seeing Ethan in the conference room, she didn't just see a rival. She saw the boy who'd held her hand in the rain, whispering they'd conquer the world together. Meanwhile, a few blocks from the cafe, Ethan sat in the dimly lit office of Titan Dynamics. The computer screen displayed an article about Novatech's ad campaign, but he wasn't really reading. In his hand was an old silver bracelet, Harper's gift for his 21st birthday. He turned it between his fingers, his gaze distant. 7 years ago, Ethan had prepared an apology. He knew he'd been wrong to leave without explaining clearly. The London internship was meant to secure a future for them both, but he hadn't anticipated Harper misunderstanding it as abandonment. When he returned, he sought her out, carrying a ring he'd planned to offer as a peace gesture. But then he saw her, in another man's arms, smiling brightly as if she'd never been heartbroken. Ethan stood there, meters away, feeling his world collapse. He thought she'd betrayed him, moving on the moment he turned away. He never knew it was Harper's brother, comforting her after days of hopeless waiting. Ethan gripped the bracelet tightly, then slipped it into a drawer. He told himself the past was dead, but every time he saw Harper, it came alive, sharp and more painful than ever. Harper returned to her apartment, her mind still heavy. She opened her laptop, intending to review financial reports, but an old article popped up in Google's suggestions. The headline read, "College Students Develop Breakthrough Tech Platform." She frowned and clicked. The article detailed the project she and Ethan had worked on together, a data platform they'd called ConnectSphere. Her heart raced as she scrolled down, spotting a detail. The patent for ConnectSphere was still registered, and both their names, Harper Lane and Ethan Cole, remained on it. Ethan had never removed her name, though he could have easily done so as Titan Dynamics CEO. She snapped the laptop shut, her breathing uneven. Why had he kept it? Was it arrogance? Or something she didn't dare consider? Silvercrest Resort nestled among lush green hills, but tonight it was engulfed by a ferocious storm. Lightning tore across the sky, and rain poured as if intent on drowning everything. Harper stood in the main lobby, her coat drenched, hair clinging to her forehead. She'd arrived to prepare for the private pitch with Global Nexus, but the storm had canceled all departing shuttles. "Ms. Lane!" A familiar voice called from the reception desk. It was Sophie, Harper's assistant, rushing over with a panicked look. I'm so sorry. I messed up the booking, and now there's only one VIP room left." Harper frowned. "Messed up how?" "Book another room." Sophie bit her lip on the verge of tears. "I tried, but the storm's trapped other guests. There's nothing else available, and the VIP room." She paused, swallowing hard. "It's booked for you and Mr. Cole." Harper felt the blood drain from her face. "What did you say?" Before Sophie could explain, a deep voice sounded behind her. "Looks like we're sharing the stage again, Lane." Harper spun around to see Ethan standing there, his wet shirt revealing the contours of his body, dark hair disheveled from the rain. He looked at her, a provocative half-smile on his lips. "Don't worry, I don't bite." Harper glared at him, turning to Sophie. "Find another solution. I'm not sharing a room with him." But the receptionist confirmed there were no other options. Reluctantly, Harper followed Ethan to the VIP room, inwardly vowing to keep as much distance as possible. The VIP room was spacious, with a king-size bed dominating the center. Harper eyed it like a ticking time bomb. "I'm taking the sofa," she declared, tossing her bag into a corner. Ethan chuckled softly, shrugging off his coat and hanging it on a rack. "Do you still snore as loudly as you did in college? If so, I'll need the sofa more." Harper's face flushed and she yanked a blanket off the bed. "Keep dreaming, Cole. The blanket's mine." She wrapped it around herself and sat on the sofa with a defiant stare. Ethan shrugged, stretching out on the bed, hands behind his head. "Suit yourself, but that sofa's hard as a rock." She opened her mouth to retort when a thunderclap roared, and the room's lights flickered before going out completely. Darkness enveloped them, and Harper felt her heart constrict. She'd been afraid of the dark since childhood, a secret she'd never told anyone, except Ethan. She clutched the blanket tightly, trying to stay calm, but her breathing grew uneven. "Harper?" Ethan's voice came, closer than she'd expected. She felt his hand touch hers, warm and steady. "You okay?" She meant to push him away, but another flash of lightning made her tremble. Ethan held her hand tighter, guiding her to sit on the bed. "Listen," he said, his voice gentle, like it used to be. "Back in college, you told me to tell you stories, to forget the storm. Want me to try again?" Harper didn't answer, but she didn't pull her hand away either. Ethan began to talk, about the time they sneaked into the library at midnight to steal cookies, about how Harper set an outlet on fire, trying to fix a printer. His voice was like an anchor, pulling her away from her fear. Gradually, she relaxed, her head unconsciously resting on his shoulder. The rain still pounded, but in that moment, there was only Ethan's voice and the warmth of his presence. When Harper drifted off, her head still on Ethan's shoulder, he watched her, his gaze soft yet tinged with pain. He brushed a strand of hair from her forehead, whispering, "If only you knew I never stopped." A thunderclap cut him off, but his eyes stayed fixed on her, as if afraid that when dawn came, she'd slip away from him again. The rain poured relentlessly outside, thunder rumbling as if tearing the sky apart. In the VIP room of Silvercrest Resort, Harper sat on the edge of the bed, a blanket wrapped tightly around her like armor. Ethan lay a few steps away, hands behind his head, eyes fixed on the ceiling. The darkness from the power outage had softened with a few candles brought by resort staff, but the air between them remained heavy, laden with 7 years of misunderstanding. Harper took a deep breath, breaking the silence. "Why did you do it, Ethan?" Her voice was low but sharp as a blade. "Why did you leave me without a single explanation?" Ethan sat up, his movements slow, as if afraid to shatter something fragile. He looked at her, his deep blue eyes glinting in the candlelight. "I didn't leave you, Harper. I went because I thought it was the best thing for both of us." Harper let out a dry laugh, bitterness surging. "The best thing? You left me standing at the airport like a fool, making dozens of calls with no answer. You chose your career, Ethan. Don't say it was for me." He clenched his fist, jaw tightening. "You don't understand. I came back to apologize, but—" He paused, his voice dropping. "I saw you with someone else. You were hugging him, smiling like you'd never been hurt. I thought you'd forgotten me." Harper froze, feeling as if she'd been doused with ice water. "Someone else?" she repeated, her voice trembling with anger and confusion. "What are you talking about? I never—" "The day I came back," Ethan cut in, his eyes filled with pain. "I went to find you at the park near the dorm. You were there, in some guy's arms. I was standing meters away, Harper. I saw everything." She frowned, digging through her memories. Then the truth hit her like a punch. "My brother," she whispered, her voice breaking. "That was Jake, Ethan. He was comforting me because you disappeared. You thought I betrayed you?" Ethan blinked as if struck. "Your brother?" he repeated, his voice hoarse. I didn't know." Harper shot to her feet, the blanket falling to the floor. She strode to the window, turning her back so he wouldn't see the tears welling in her eyes. 7 years, Ethan. 7 years I thought you chose your job over me. 7 years I told myself I'd never forgive you. And now you say it was just a misunderstanding?" Ethan stood, stepping closer but stopping when he saw her clenched fists. "Harper, I was wrong. I should have asked you, should have trusted you. But back then, I just felt like I'd lost everything." She turned, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, but her voice firm. "A misunderstanding doesn't erase 7 years, Ethan. It doesn't erase the nights I cried, doesn't erase the fact that I had to build Novatech alone while you had the whole world at your feet." He nodded, his gaze never leaving her. "I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want you to know the truth." She looked at him, her heart torn between anger and a feeling she didn't dare name. She wanted to scream, to pound his chest, but also to hear him keep talking, to understand why he'd kept their shared patent intact. But she didn't ask. She only said, her voice cold, "Don't think one story changes everything." Ethan didn't reply, but his eyes burned with determination, as if he'd staked his entire life on making things right. A thunderclap roared, followed by a brilliant flash of lightning. Harper flinched, stepping back, and at that moment, a bolt struck somewhere near the window, its blinding white light shaking the room. Ethan reacted instantly, pulling her into his arms, holding her tightly as if afraid she'd vanish. They stood there, breaths mingling, hearts beating in sync with the storm outside. "Harper," he whispered, voice rough, but she pushed him away, stepping back. Without a word, she fled to the bathroom, slamming the door. The sound of running water drowned out the thunder, but it couldn't drown out the lingering warmth of his embrace still clinging to her. The faint light of dawn slipped through the white silk curtains in the VIP room of Silvercrest Resort, casting weak streaks across the polished wooden floor. Last night's storm had calmed, leaving only a drizzle, like a lingering whisper between earth and sky. Harper Lane opened her eyes, her mind foggy, eyelids heavy from a night fraught with emotion. She felt warmth beside her, a steady breath brushing her hair, and then reality crashed in like a wave. She was on the king-size bed, in Ethan Cole's arms. She froze, her heart pounding as if it might burst from her chest. Ethan was still asleep, his face unusually serene, thick brows slightly furrowed as if dreaming something profound. One arm encircled her waist, gentle but firm, as if even in sleep he feared she'd slip away. His familiar sandalwood cologne, a blend of cedar and musk, enveloped her, dragging up memories of days when they'd curled up in blankets in their dorm, laughing until dawn. Harper's face burned, a jolt of heat racing down her spine. How did she end up here? She remembered fleeing to the bathroom after that moment by the window, after he'd pulled her from the lightning's glare and set her heart racing. She'd returned to the sofa, wrapped in a blanket, determined to keep her distance. And then what? Carefully, she disentangled his arm, each movement deliberate to avoid waking him. His fingers brushed her skin as she pulled away, sending a shiver through her, heightening her awareness of their closeness. His warmth, the steady rise and fall of his chest. It was a dangerous invitation she didn't dare accept. She slid off the bed, her bare feet meeting the cold floor, her heart racing like it might leap out. She couldn't let this continue. She couldn't let him creep back into her heart, not after 7 years of building walls to protect herself. Harper slipped on her navy wool coat, her hands trembling slightly as she zipped it up. She grabbed her bag, glancing briefly at the room, the sofa where she'd meant to sleep, the burned-out candle on the table, and Ethan still lying there, unaware she was about to leave. She walked to the door, gripping the handle tightly, and closed it behind her, gently but firmly, as if sealing away the emotions stirring inside her. The lock's soft click rang sharp, like a declaration that she was still in control. Ethan woke minutes later, dawn's light making him blink. He reached to the side, only to find the bed empty and cold. A hollow feeling surged, as if he'd lost something he'd just rediscovered. He sat up, staring at the drizzle outside, his hand clenching the crisp white sheet. Harper was gone. She still hadn't forgiven him, he thought, and maybe she never would. But the image of her last night, vulnerable, leaning on his shoulder as he told stories, her eyes reflecting the candlelight, made it impossible to give up. She was still his Harper, no matter how much she denied it. "She's still Harper," he muttered, his eyes burning with resolve, "and I won't give up again." He stood, crossing to the window, watching the rain speckle the pine forest. Today was the final pitch with Global Nexus, a chance for Titan Dynamics to secure the contract. But in his mind, it wasn't just about numbers or data. It was a chance to prove to Harper that he wasn't the foolish 23-year-old who'd left her behind over a misunderstanding. He slipped into his suit, adjusting his tie, each motion deliberate and purposeful. He'd fight, not just for Titan, but for her. Harper stood in the resort's main lobby, the cool air from the open glass doors making her shiver. Her coat was on, her hair still slightly mussed from the storm, her eyes fixed on the marble floor as if searching its veins for answers. Her phone buzzed, the screen flashing Richard Hayes, chairman of Global Nexus. She took a deep breath, forcing her voice to stay steady as she answered. "Ms. Lane," Hayes' voice came through, sterner than usual, each word weighing on her shoulders. "We've reviewed both Novatech and Titan Dynamics. Both are exceptional, but we don't want to choose one. We want you to collaborate. If not, the project's off." Harper felt the blood drain from her face, her grip on the phone tightening until her knuckles whitened. Collaborate? With Ethan? After last night, after he held her hand, told stories to soothe her fears, nearly making her forget why she'd built a wall between them? The thought of working with him, facing him daily, felt like being trapped in last night's storm all over again. "I need time to consider, sir," she said, her voice calm but her eyes flashing with unease. Hayes paused for a second, then replied, "I understand. But don't take too long. Ms. Lane, opportunities like this don't come twice." The call ended, and Harper stood there, staring at the glass door leading to the garden, where rain fell quietly. She knew Hayes was right. This was a chance not just for Novatech, but for the dream she'd built from the ashes of her past. But collaborating with Ethan wasn't just a business decision. It was the greatest challenge she and he would face, a test of what they'd said last night and of the feelings she feared to acknowledge in her heart. The morning after, the main hall of Silver Crest Resort glowed with natural light streaming through large windows overlooking a lush pine forest, where morning mist still clung to the leaves. Last night's storm had cleared, leaving crisp, cool air, but in Harper Lane's heart, another storm churned, unrelenting. She stood before a mirror in a temporary dressing room, soft lighting illuminating her fitted silver-gray business dress that accentuated her graceful figure. Her brown hair was pinned up, revealing sharp eyes tinged with a rare hint of hesitation. Today was the final pitch with Global Nexus, the chance for Novatech to secure a contract worth hundreds of millions, propelling her company to global heights. But after last night, Ethan's confessions, the moment she trembled in his arms, she wasn't sure who she was fighting anymore, him or her own heart. Harper took a deep breath, adjusting the stack of documents bearing Novatech's logo, telling herself to focus. She couldn't let emotions take over, not today. She stepped out, her heels clicking confidently on the wooden floor, but with each step toward the hall, her heart beat faster. The hall filled steadily, investors in tailored suits, reporters with cameras and notebooks, and judges sat upright in the front row, their gazes piercing as if dissecting every detail. Harper entered, sensing Ethan's presence before she saw him. He sat in the front row, his black suit hugging his frame, dark hair slightly tousled, deep blue eyes tracking her every step. For a moment, their gazes locked. Just a second, but enough to force her to look away, focusing on the podium ahead. She couldn't let him distract her, not now. Richard Hayes, chairman of Global Nexus, stood to open the session, his voice commanding through the speakers. Today, we'll hear from Novatech and Titan Dynamics. This is your final chance to prove who deserves this contract, or, as I've suggested, to collaborate on the project. Harper clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms to stay calm. Collaborate with Ethan? After everything, misunderstandings, pain, and last night's moment that nearly made her forget the wall she'd built? She'd rather lose, rather forfeit the contract than stand beside him and face emotions she wasn't ready to name. She was called first. Harper stepped to the podium, her professional smile masking her racing heart. She took a breath and began, her voice ringing with emotion, like a carefully composed symphony. Technology isn't just data or speed. It's a dream of connecting people, making lives better. She recounted Novatech's journey, from a sketch on paper in a small room to an ad campaign that shook the market, garnering millions of shares in days. She emphasized her vision, a platform not just powerful, but accessible and human. Her slides burst with images of children in remote areas, learning via Novatech's app, farmers boosting yields with technology, and families connected through her network. She ended with a weighty line. Novatech doesn't just create technology, we create hope. As she stepped down, the room erupted in applause, several investors nodding in approval, a reporter scribbling furiously. But then Ethan stood, and the hall's atmosphere shifted, like a current sparking through, drawing every eye to him. He didn't use emotional slides or inspirational tales. Instead, he took a marker, stepped to a whiteboard, and laid out data. Sharp, precise, irrefutable. Titan Dynamics doesn't promise dreams, he said, his deep voice captivating, each word hammering Harper's confidence. We deliver reality. Technology 40% faster, 30% more cost-efficient, tested successfully in 10 global markets. He sketched a chart, numbers emerging like a proclamation. Neuralink was safe, sustainable, unmatched. When he sat, the applause was louder than Harper's, echoing like a reminder that he always made her feel she wasn't enough. Harper sat, hands clenching under the table, nails digging deeper into her skin. She hated this feeling, like he was always one step ahead, not just in business, but in her heart. After the pitches, the judges deliberated briefly in a closed room, leaving the hall buzzing with predictions. Harper pretended to organize her documents, avoiding Ethan's gaze, but she felt it from the front row. Not challenging, but something deeper, more complex. Hayes returned, standing with a stern expression. "Both Novatech and Titan Dynamics are exceptional," he said, his voice carrying through the mic. "But we believe this project needs both, a collaboration blending Ms. Lane's vision with Mr. Cole's strength. If not, we'll seek another partner." The room erupted in murmurs. Harper felt heat rush to her face, her heart pounding like it might burst. Collaborate with Ethan? After his words last night, after he held her as lightning struck, nearly making her forget why she resented him. She stood before thinking, her voice cold but steady as steel. "I deeply value the opportunity, Mr. Hayes, but Novatech doesn't work with those who don't respect us." She glanced at Ethan, her eyes blazing with defiance, as if saying this wasn't just for Titan Dynamics, but for him. "I'd rather walk away from the contract." The room fell silent, the only sound a faint breeze through the windows. Ethan said nothing, but his eyes, hurt, disappointed, and something deeper, made Harper want to look away, to flee its weight. Hayes frowned, his voice calm but firm. "Ms. Lane, think carefully. This isn't just your opportunity, but one for the entire industry." Harper nodded but didn't retract her words. She returned to her seat, heart racing, hands trembling as she gathered her documents. She knew she'd just put Novatech at risk, but the thought of standing beside Ethan, facing him daily after what last night stirred, was unbearable. The meeting ended in tense silence, as if the room was still locked in Harper's refusal. She packed her documents, avoiding everyone's eyes, especially the reporters whispering about her bold decision. She stepped into the quiet hallway, its chandelier casting pale light, and realized Ethan was gone. Returning to her table for her bag, she spotted something small, a black USB drive, unmarked, placed where Ethan had stood. Harper frowned, her hand trembling as she picked it up. She plugged it into her laptop right there in the hallway, eyes scanning the screen. A single file appeared. "Connect Sphere, Draft 2018. Her heart raced, threatening to leap out. She clicked, and there it was. The project plan she and Ethan wrote together in college. The data platform they dreamed would change the world. Every detail was intact. Her hand-drawn sketches with scribbled stars in the margins, his notes in sharp handwriting, even a coffee stain from a night they worked till dawn. On the final page, a scanned handwritten note. "For Harper, because we never stopped dreaming." Harper snapped the laptop shut, her breathing ragged, eyes lost in the void. He'd kept it for 7 years, carrying their dream through every step. But why give it to her now, after she'd slammed the door on collaboration in his face? Harper sat in Novatech's office, the laptop screen's glow illuminating her pensive face, highlighting her contemplative eyes. Outside, San Francisco's sunset painted the sky gold, but she didn't notice. On the desk before her lay the USB Ethan had left behind, holding their college ConnectSphere plan, and a black leather notebook that wasn't hers. She'd realized Ethan forgot it in the resort's meeting room during their heated strategy debate before the pitch. Part of her wanted to discard it, but another part, the one that still remembered him, couldn't resist. She opened the notebook, fingers brushing the smooth leather cover. The first page stopped her cold. Ethan's handwriting, sharp yet emotional, dated 7 years ago. "Harper, I was wrong. I shouldn't have left without saying anything. I just wanted a better future for us." Her heart raced as she turned the pages. Dozens were filled with letters he wrote to her but never sent. Some were brief, like whispers in the night. "Saw you in the news today. Novatech is your dream, and I'm proud, even if I have no right to be." Others were longer, recounting sleepless nights in London missing her, or the time he nearly flew back just to see her from afar. She paused at a page near the end, written a year ago. "Harper, I built Titan, but every step, I felt your absence. You're the one dream I can't let go." The handwriting trembled, as if penned in a surge of emotion. Harper closed the notebook, hands shaking slightly. Her chest felt heavy, not with anger, but with something more complex. She wanted to hate him, to believe these were just excuses. But deep down, she knew Ethan wasn't a liar. She opened her laptop, fingers moving almost unconsciously. She typed Ethan Cole's name into the search bar, something she'd never done, fearing it would unearth the past. Articles about Titan Dynamics flooded the results, victories, innovations, but a small, nearly buried piece caught her eye. Headline: Titan Dynamics funds tech scholarships for underprivileged students. She frowned, clicking. The article detailed a program called Future Innovators, supporting hundreds of students pursuing tech careers. One detail made her heart skip. The scholarships focused on ideas for connecting communities through technology, exactly the proposal she'd shared with Ethan during a long college night. They'd sprawled on the dorm floor, eating cold pizza, dreaming of helping young people like them rise. Someday, she'd said, we'll do this, Ethan. Not just for money, but for other dreams. She slammed the laptop shut, breathing heavily. Ethan hadn't just kept the ConnectSphere patent with both their names. He'd kept her, their dream, quietly making it real. But why never tell her? Why let her believe he'd forgotten everything? She glanced at the notebook, then the USB. Each was a piece of an Ethan she hadn't known. Not the cold CEO of Titan Dynamics, but the boy who loved her enough to write dozens of unsent letters. She stood, grabbing her bag and the notebook, her mind a tangle. There was something she needed to do now. Night had fallen when Harper drove to Titan Dynamics headquarters, a sleek glass building glowing in the city's heart. She stepped into the lobby, heels clicking on the marble floor, but each step toward Ethan's office made her heart pound harder. The notebook weighed heavy in her bag, carrying 7 years of their past. She wasn't sure what she'd say, confront him, return the notebook, or just look into his eyes for answers. She paused at his office door, golden light spilling through a small glass pane. Through the gap, she saw Ethan at his desk, sleeves rolled up, reading something on his screen. He looked tired, but his eyes were sharp, as if he never stopped fighting. For a moment, she saw the college Ethan, the boy who laughed when she spilled coffee on his laptop, who held her hand in the rain and swore he'd never let go. She raised her hand, fingers grazing the door, but stopped. What would happen if she walked in? If she faced him, the letters, the scholarships, all he'd kept hidden? Could she handle opening her heart again? Or would it just be a fresh wound? Harper stood frozen, the notebook in her bag a reminder she couldn't run forever. But right now she lacked the courage. Not today. She turned, hurrying out of the building, unaware that Ethan had looked up, catching her silhouette through the glass. He stood, about to call her name, but she'd already vanished into the dark. The San Francisco afternoon was draped in gray clouds, pale light filtering through the windows of Novatech's office. Harper Lane sat behind her desk, surrounded by stacks of documents and a laptop still displaying the article about Titan Dynamics' scholarship program. Ethan's black leather notebook, filled with unsent letters, was tucked in a drawer, but she didn't dare open it again. Since standing outside his office, she'd tried to avoid thinking of him, to forget the line, "Harper, you're the one dream I can't let go." But Ethan Cole wasn't easily forgotten. She was reading an email from a partner when a knock sounded. Sophie, her assistant, poked her head in, looking slightly flustered. "Ms. Lane, someone's here to see you. He didn't make an appointment." Harper frowned. "Who?" Before Sophie could answer, the door swung open, and Ethan stepped inside. He wore a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, no suit, no tie, as if he wanted to appear as a man, not the CEO of Titan Dynamics. His deep blue eyes locked onto hers, unwavering. Harper shot to her feet, her heart racing faster than she'd admit. "What are you doing here, Cole?" Ethan closed the door, approaching her desk but stopping a few steps away, giving her space. "I came to talk, Harper, not to the CEO of Novatech, but to you." She crossed her arms, her gaze icy. "We have nothing to talk about. If this is about the Global Nexus contract, I made myself clear. I won't work with you." Ethan didn't reply immediately. He pulled a folded document from his pocket and placed it on her desk. "This isn't about Global Nexus," he said, his voice low and steady. "It's my offer, not between Titan and Novatech, but between Ethan and Harper." Harper eyed the document, then him, suspicion overriding other emotions. She unfolded it, scanning the lines. It was a partnership agreement for a new project, not a data platform or AI, but a community tech development program blending ConnectSphere's vision with the scholarship idea she'd once dreamed of. No deadlines, no binding conditions, just her name and his, united for a shared goal. She looked up, her voice trembling with anger and confusion. You think this changes anything? A piece of paper, some old ideas, and you expect me to forget 7 years? Ethan stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. I don't expect you to forget, Harper. I was wrong. When I left without explaining, when I thought you betrayed me, when I let a misunderstanding tear us apart, I've lived with that mistake every day, and I don't want one more. He paused, his voice roughening. I want to start over, not just as partners. I want us to take back what we lost. Harper felt her chest tighten. She wanted to yell, to shove him out of her office, but his eyes, sincere, vulnerable, made her hesitate. She remembered the letters in his notebook, the way he kept their shared patent, his arms around her in the storm. But she also remembered the nights she cried, the years she swore never to let him hurt her again. You don't get it, she said, her voice cold but cracking. I built Novatech from the ruins you left behind. I can't just go back like nothing happened. Ethan nodded as if expecting her response. I know, and I'm not asking for instant forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to prove I'm not that stupid kid anymore. He gestured to the agreement. This is the first step. If you say no, I won't push. But don't say no just because you're scared. Harper looked at him, then at the document. She felt like she stood at a crossroads. One path safe, her heart walled off. The other Ethan, their shared dream, and a risk she wasn't sure she could face. She picked up a pen, her hand trembling slightly. This isn't forgiveness, she said, her eyes locked on his. It's your last chance. If you let me down again, Ethan, there won't be another. She signed each stroke like a declaration of war against him and herself. Ethan watched, his eyes flickering with hope and resolve. He signed next, his name beside hers, as they'd once written on ConnectSphere's college draft. They stood facing each other across the desk. Ethan extended his hand, his voice soft. Thank you, Harper. She took it, intending a brief handshake, but their fingers lingered, intertwining more than necessary, as if neither wanted to let go. His skin was warm, slightly rough, and in that moment, Harper felt her own heartbeat. They stood there just seconds, but enough for her to sense every wall she'd built trembling. She pulled back, turning away so he wouldn't see her flush. Don't make me regret this, Cole, she said, forcing her voice to sound firm. Ethan smiled, not the smug grin of a rival, but the smile of the boy who'd loved her fiercely. I won't, Lane. He left the office, leaving Harper with the agreement on her desk like a fragile promise. She looked out the window, the sunset gone, darkness creeping into the city. One question echoed in her mind. Did I just open a door or a trap? She didn't know the answer, but for the first time in 7 years, she felt a spark of hope, small, fragile, but undeniable. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and told herself that, whatever happened, she wouldn't let Ethan Cole break her heart again. A year later, Silvercrest Resort remained a picturesque haven nestled among lush green hills, but it now held a new meaning for Harper Lane and Ethan Cole. The resort's main hall glowed with radiant light, packed with guests, investors, engineers, and reporters from across the globe. They were no longer rivals vying for Global Nexus contract. They were the keynote speakers at Tech Summit 2026, representing Nexus Innovations, the joint venture blending Novatech's vision with Titan Dynamics' strength. In a year, they turned ConnectSphere's dream into reality, a tech platform connecting communities, from schools to rural areas, with millions of users worldwide. Harper stood before a mirror in the prep room, adjusting her emerald green dress that hugged her figure, her brown hair cascading in soft waves. She smiled at her reflection, a confident yet warm smile, far from the scarred woman who'd entered this resort a year ago. Back then, she'd signed the agreement with Ethan, calling it his last chance. She hadn't expected it to lead here, not just as business partners, but as something deeper. The door opened, and Ethan stepped in, his silver-gray suit accentuating his tall frame. He paused, his deep blue eyes sweeping over her, gleaming with unhidden admiration. "You look stunning, Lane," he said, his voice low and captivating. "But don't steal all the spotlight tonight, okay?" Harper smirked, turning to face him. "Keep dreaming, Cole. You still haven't learned to share the stage." He laughed, stepping closer, his hand lightly brushing her waist. "I've learned a few more important things," he murmured, and her smile softened, her heart skipping a beat. The summit began with electric energy. Harper and Ethan took the stage together, introducing Nexus innovations with a synergy that left the room in awe. Harper spoke of vision, technology as a bridge between people, not just power. Ethan backed her with data, a 200% user growth in 6 months, rural communities thriving on their free platform. They alternated seamlessly, each word like a perfectly rehearsed dance. But their exchanged glances told another story, one of trust rebuilt from ruins. As they stepped off the stage to roaring applause, Harper felt a chill from an open window. She glanced outside, frowning. "Don't tell me it's another storm," she muttered. Ethan stood beside her, chuckling. History repeating itself? She shot him a playful glare, unable to hide her smile. "If there's only one room again, I swear I'm taking all the blankets this time." He tilted his head, eyes twinkling. "This time I won't let you hog them, Lane." They burst into laughter, their voices mingling with the summit's buzz, as if they'd never been adversaries a year ago. As predicted, a sudden storm hit late that night, stranding guests at the resort. Harper and Ethan were assigned a VIP room, this time deliberately at their request. The room mirrored the one they'd shared a year ago. A king-size bed, large windows overlooking the forest, and the roar of rain outside. But now there was no tension, no pillow wall between them. Harper stood by the window watching the downpour, a thin sweater hugging her shoulders. "Did you think we'd be here, like this, a year ago?" she asked softly. Ethan approached, standing behind her, close enough for her to feel his warmth. "No," he said, his voice low. "But I hoped. Every day since you signed that agreement." She turned, meeting his eyes. "I was scared, you know. Scared you'd hurt me again." Ethan took her hand, fingers intertwining tightly. "I know. And I was scared you'd never give me a chance to make it right." He pulled her closer, eyes never leaving hers. "But you did, Harper, and I won't waste it." A flash of lightning lit up, but Harper wasn't afraid this time. She smiled, tugging him toward the balcony despite the rain. "Come on," she said, her voice daring. "If this is history repeating, let's make it worth it." They stood in the rain, clothes soaking through, but they only laughed. Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly, his breath warm against her hair. "The walls between us are gone, Harper," he whispered, "and I won't let them come back." She looked up, eyes glistening with rain and emotion. "You'd better keep that promise, Cole," she said, then rose on her toes, kissing him. The kiss was slow, deep, as if reclaiming every lost moment. The rain fell, but in each other's arms they felt only warmth. The next day the summit continued with the main keynote. Harper stood on stage, the spotlight making her glow. In an elegant white dress, her voice rang with emotion. "A year ago I stood here, thinking I was fighting my greatest enemy," she began, her gaze sweeping the audience. "But sometimes your enemy is the one who knows you best. Nexus Innovations isn't just a company. It's proof that from rivalry, we can build miracles together." She paused, smiling. "We were two people who thought we'd never see eye to eye. But sometimes just one rainy night is enough to make two people let it all go." Ethan emerged from the wings, his navy suit striking against his tall frame. He took her hand, fingers locking, and the room erupted in applause. He leaned down, whispering just for her. "You just stole the whole show, Lane." She grinned, tilting her head. "Learn to share, Cole." Under the stage lights, before hundreds of eyes, Ethan pulled her close, kissing her. The kiss was gentle but firm, a wordless vow. The applause thundered, but Harper heard only Ethan's heartbeat, matching hers. As the summit ended, they stood on the VIP room's balcony, gazing at the pine forest shimmering in early sunlight. Harper leaned into Ethan's shoulder, his arm around her waist, a quiet peace settling over them. "A year ago, I thought you were my biggest mistake," she said softly. Ethan chuckled, kissing her hair. "And I thought you were the one thing I couldn't fix. Lucky we were both wrong." She laughed, nudging his chest. "Don't get too cocky, Cole. I can still hog the blankets anytime." He caught her hand, pulling her close, his eyes warm but certain. "Try it, Lane. But this time, I'm not letting you go." They stood there embracing under the dawn, no walls left between them. The storm had passed, and ahead lay a wide horizon where they'd write their dream together. The stage lights of Silvercrest Hall bathed Harper Lane and Ethan Cole in a radiant glow, as if the world itself was witnessing their moment. Tech Summit 2026 had reached its peak, with hundreds of guests, investors to engineers, filling the room, eyes fixed on the pair at the podium. Harper stood there, her elegant white dress clinging to her frame, brown hair falling in soft waves, her eyes shining with confidence and a joy she once thought lost. Beside her, Ethan stood tall in a navy suit, holding her hand tightly, his deep blue eyes brimming with trust and pride. Harper stepped to the microphone, her voice clear and heartfelt. "A year ago, I stood in this resort, believing I was fighting to protect Novatech's dream," she began, her gaze sweeping the crowd. "I built walls, not just against a rival, but to shield myself. Today, I stand here, not as a CEO, but as someone who learned that sometimes you have to dare to tear those walls down." She paused, turning to Ethan, a gentle smile blooming. "Nexus Innovations isn't just a company. It's proof that from broken pieces, from misunderstandings, two people can build something miraculous together. One rainy night can change everything, if you let it." The room exploded in applause. Ethan stepped closer, his hand still clasping hers, his eyes twinkling with mischief and pride. He leaned in, whispering just for her, "You've got the whole room tearing up, Lane. Save some spotlight for me?" Harper smirked, whispering back, "Keep up, Cole." He laughed, then surprised her with a hug right on stage. The crowd cheered, applause thundering. Harper felt his warmth, his heartbeat syncing with hers, and in that moment, she knew. They'd weathered every storm, not just outside, but within their hearts. As the summit closed, Harper and Ethan left the stage hand in hand, stepping through a door to the balcony. Outside, last night's storm had cleared, leaving a crisp sky glittering with stars. They paused, gazing at the sprawling pine forest, the cool air carrying the scent of rain-soaked earth. Harper rested her head on Ethan's shoulder, peace flooding her. "A year ago, I thought you were my biggest mistake," she said softly, eyes on the horizon. Ethan turned, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "And I thought you were the one thing I couldn't fix." He smiled, his dimple showing. "Good thing we were both wrong." She laughed, playfully nudging his chest. "Don't get too smug, Cole. I can still steal all the blankets." He caught her hands, pulling her close, his gaze tender but firm. "Go ahead, Lane, but I'm not letting you go." They stood there, wrapped in each other under the stars. No barriers left. Harper closed her eyes, letting Ethan's warmth surround her, and for the first time in 7 years, she felt truly home. Not in the past, but in a future they'd write together. In the final scene, they walked from the hall, hand in hand, the stage lights fading behind them. The rain had stopped, and the path ahead stretched bright under the moonlight. Harper looked at Ethan. He looked back, and they smiled. A smile of two who'd survived the storm, not just to endure, but to find each other. They stepped forward, no longer rivals, no longer wounded, but two hearts beating as one, ready for every dream ahead, together this time. Thank you for following this heartfelt story of Soul Stories channel. Share your thoughts about the story in the comments below. If you believe that true love can withstand all trials and sometimes begins in the simplest of ways, don't forget to hit the like button and share this story with your friends. To never miss out on touching and meaningful stories, subscribe to our channel and help us spread messages of love and warmth to everyone. Let's cherish the beautiful moments of life and love together.